It's so good to have you with us at Church Online today. My name's Josh and I'm the campus pastor over at Arena Mansfield. We're in this series called We Get To. It's our phrase for the year, that we get to. Not that we have to or we've got to, but we get to. And today we're going to be speaking about we get to share Jesus. I want to take you to one of the stories about Jesus, one of the accounts of Jesus in the Bible found in Mark 5. And he comes to a guy who the Bible tells us was demon possessed. It says that he broke the chains that were on him. He was harassing people, and basically he was off and he was isolated and on his own. And this man came to Jesus and Jesus transformed his life. I want to tell you though, I want to speak and hone in specifically today on what happens after that first interaction with Jesus and this man. So from verse 14 it says this: those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened, see something amazing had happened in this man. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus didn't let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. I love this story and I love this account, and it's going to be the foundation for our message today. Now, before we go back and dig a bit deeper into that, but have you ever really wanted to go somewhere? You've wanted to go to a place or go on holiday somewhere, but because of circumstances, you weren't able to go. I've had a few of these situations in my life where I really wanted to go to an event, but I was doing something else so I couldn't go, or I really wanted to go to a concert one time, but I wasn't able to go with my friends because I was away on holiday, and as a kid I was good about that. But the biggest situation of this in my life was quite a few years ago. Let me take you back to 2009. I was still living at home. I was just a 19-year-old kid at the time. And my family were planning a holiday, and it was a whole family thing. My mum and dad were good with that. It was like this whole family thing. Let's talk about where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Now, people who know me, my friends, will know that the place I love to go on holiday more than any other is Florida. I just love to go there. We'd had the privilege of going there a couple of times, and I had thought we'd been building up to go to Florida. So when it came to the discussions, I was pressing for it. I thought, yeah, we're going to be able to go there. And just because of circumstances at that time, we weren't able to go. So instead, my mum and dad, in a sort of a bit of a last minute thing, they booked this all-inclusive trip to Egypt. Now, you might say, Josh, that sounds great. And me as a 34-year-old man, I see things very differently now. But I'm ashamed to say that even when we got to the holiday on the first day, I was still sulking. Because I wanted this all-action holiday, the rides, the shopping, the watching the sports on TV in America, the playing, the American food. Come on, somebody, we all know a bit about the American food. I wanted all of it. I loved it. And all-inclusive to me, it was going to be being cooped up with a load of people I didn't know for a few weeks, and I didn't get it, and I didn't understand it. So even on the first night of the holiday, here we are in the restaurant, and I'm sulking because I didn't want to eat from the set menu. I wanted to go and get a Mackie D's. Come on, somebody. Sometimes you just need a McDonald's. But over these next few weeks, we had an awesome time. We had a great time as a family. It was a different holiday to the one that I thought I wanted, but it was the holiday that we needed. Because at that time, my parents were going through a really stressful time at work, and maybe the razzmatazz of Orlando, Florida would probably have been a bit too much, and instead of all that action and activity that we would normally do, we just needed to chill, to read, to be together, to eat lots of food, to play games, and that's what we did. We had an awesome time, and I still think back of it, of one of my favourite holidays with my family. Like I've already said, it might not have been the holiday I wanted, but it was the holiday I needed. Sometimes the things we think are right for us in life are actually the wrong thing. And sometimes what we think is the wrong thing for us is the right thing. Look back at your life. Think about some of the decisions that you thought at that time you really wanted. Maybe that relationship. Come on, somebody. Maybe that house. Maybe that job. You thought it was the perfect situation, and when you didn't get it, you were gutted. But then now you look back with hindsight and you say, actually, it was what I wanted, but it wasn't what I needed. In Mark 5, this man who we don't know by name, apart from the man who was demon-possessed, that's how we know this guy. He had the same problem as me. On the back of this life-changing moment with Jesus, because his life had changed, he was demonized. He was this crazed man who was chained up on the outskirts of society, and he was that strong that he kept breaking these chains, and people were scared of him. He was shunned. He'd had this life-changing moment, and he goes to Jesus in his excitement, in his exuberance, this man who had changed his life, and he says, Jesus, I want to come with you. Jesus, I want to go and change the world with you. But Jesus essentially said to him, look at the scripture again, and we will dive into it in just a second. Jesus basically said, look, I don't want you to change the world. I want you to go back and change your world. That's what I want for you. And today, as we talk about this idea of we get to share Jesus, I want to look at a few questions that we ask when it comes to sharing Jesus. Because I get it. If you've been around church for any length of time, there might be a bit of anxiety around this topic. Maybe at times you felt pressurized. Maybe at times you've pressurized yourself. Maybe at times you have not quite felt that you meet the mark because you've been scared to share Jesus with people. I want you to know today that we're going to overcome that. That today I'm going to simplify this whole area for you. And with the power of the Holy Spirit, I believe that you're going to go from this message, from hearing this message, and you're going to be able to share Jesus with your world. See, when we hear about something like sharing Jesus or evangelism, which you might have heard it called sometimes, we often picture people stood on the street corner shouting, the street preacher. We maybe think about evangelistic rallies where you go out onto the streets and do all that stuff. And if I'm being dead honest, that stuff is scary for a lot of people. That's not the way that I'd like to share Jesus. I like to do it in a very different way to that we're going to talk about today. And honestly, street preaching and that stuff, that is awesome for a few people. But I think it's more the exception than the rule of the way that Jesus would like us to go about talking and sharing him. I don't want you to feel any pressure today. I want you to feel a call. I want you to feel called out by Jesus because Jesus called us to go into our world and make disciples of all nations. But I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't want you to feel anxious. I want you to feel free. I want you to feel excited to go into your world and share Jesus. By the end of this message, by the power of God's Spirit, you will feel the confidence and the clarity to go into your world and to share your faith in Jesus. So I talked about these questions I want to look at. I believe there are three questions. There are three questions that we ask, two in particular, that we ask when it comes to sharing Jesus. Now, at times, I think we found these three questions hard to answer. And because they've been hard to answer, people have ran away from answering them, have run away from asking them, and basically have just turned their back on sharing Jesus, which, as we've already heard, Jesus said himself, I want you to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. So we want to do this because this is what Jesus called us to do. But today I want to de-stress it. Today I want to make it simple for you. Because I believe that as we go into our world and share Jesus, amazing change will happen. So the first question is this: where do I go? Where do I go? It's this whole idea of where do I start? Where should I share Jesus? How do I do it? Because over years, there's been different answers to that question, haven't there? There's been, do I need to go abroad to share Jesus? Do I need to go to an event to share Jesus? Do I need to go on a specific mission in this country to share Jesus, or another country to share Jesus? Or does it have to be something different? Does it have to be an event altogether? We think of big rallies. We think of missions, those type of things. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for all of that. But those things aren't the foundation, and they shouldn't be the foundation of our sharing Jesus. They are to be one-offs and once in a whiles. And when they're made like that, and when there's a different foundation, they can be incredibly powerful. But it's this kind of thinking that's led people to believe that sharing Jesus is just the pastor's job. Because how can most people organize a big event like this? They can't. But today, we're talking about not sharing Jesus to the masses. We're talking about sharing Jesus personally. So again, where do you go? Where do we go? Where do I go? Let's look at what Jesus said to this man whose life had been changed. Verse 18, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. He wanted to go on this exciting journey around the world. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. So Jesus is about to go on his ministry journey to literally change the world. That's why we're here today. Just so you know, Jesus never came to England. He changed the world. And this man is saying to Jesus, Jesus, I want to come with you. You've changed my life. I want to go and change the world with you. He wants to go to the towns and the cities with Jesus. He wants to travel around. He thinks, the impact I can have if only I journey with Jesus. We will change the world. But Jesus gives him a different call. Jesus gives him a different option, an option where he'd be more effective. And in the only way that Jesus can, he reins him in. And like me having the holiday that I needed rather than the one I wanted, Jesus gave this man the calling he was born for rather than the one that he wanted. Jesus said, go home to your own people. In essence, Jesus was saying to him, I don't want you to change the world, the big world that we live in. I want you to change your world. Your world. See, this phrase is translated from the Greek word oikos when he talks about go home to your own people, which essentially means your household. But in these times, your household, it extended to those in your extended family, your friends, your community. The reality is, most of us will never have the chance to impact the world. That's just the truth. Maybe 0.1% of the entire world get a chance to address the world or are known by the world. It's probably far less than that. So most of us will never get a chance to impact the world. But I want you to know today, you can impact your world. Your world, what is it? Josh, is that just a plain word? No, your world is where you've got influence. Your world is where you are known. Your world is where you have relationships. When you walk into that office, that's your world. When you walk into that school, that's your world. In your family, that's your world. Wherever you have influence, that's your world. So you might never impact politics in England, but you can impact the positivity around you. You might never transform a town, but you can transform your family and friends. You might never sit in front of kings, but you can share the love of the King with those in your workplace. I want you to know today that you can change the world. And anyway, do you know how you change the world? You start with your world. If you want to have a big impact, you start small. You start where you are. When God called Moses, Moses said, I can't do that. I can't liberate your people. God, it's too big. And God said, Moses, what's in your hand? Where do you start? You start where you've got influence today, and then see what God does with that. I believe we need to pray less generic prayers for the world. It's good to pray for the world, of course it is. But maybe we spend a bit too much time praying for the world, and we need to pray more specific prayers for those in our world, those on the school run, those who we see every day, those in the classroom, those who are in the office, those in the warehouse, those in the restaurant, those in the football team. Are you praying for them? Are you praying specific prayers for the people that you meet in your world? I want you to know today that you aren't called to the world. You are called to your world, to that workplace, that family, that school, that social setting. That is where you're called to make a difference. See, it's time that the people of God got a vision for their workplace, for their world. If we all get a vision for our world, where we have influence, and if we go out believing that with Jesus we can bring change, then I want you to know the world will be shaken, because all of us are influencing our world. So, the first question, where do I go? You go where you have influence. You go to your world. The next question, when it comes to sharing Jesus, is this. What do I say? What do I say? Let's look at what Jesus says to this man in verse 19. Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell him, the Decapolis, how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. See, this question has become such a hindrance to people at times. What if someone asks about the dinosaurs, or about the theology of the Old or the New Testament, or about a specific Bible verse that I don't understand? We've let these things become a hindrance to us. We've made it so complicated. We've been worried that we don't know enough and feel we need to know everything, when, to be honest, the opposite is true. Do you know what I do when someone asks a question I don't know? I say, I don't know. I go away and I'll research it, I'll talk to somebody, and then I'll come back and have an answer for them. Now, there's not an answer for everything, we realise that, but I'll have my take on something. But you see, Jesus doesn't leave all this as an option. He doesn't let us get bogged down in the weeds of all this. He doesn't ask us to explain the end times, to go through Genesis to Revelation. He doesn't ask us to preach. To be honest, to preach in one-to-one setting is often the worst thing you can ever do. He says to this man, tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. I believe we can all do this. Jesus says to this man, in essence, tell your story. Just tell your story. That's all you need to do. Tell of how Jesus has had mercy on you, how he's forgiven you, how he's set you free, how he's transformed you, how he lives in you. You can tell your story. In fact, I can make a case today to say that there is nobody better on planet Earth to tell your story than you. Do you know why? Because it's yours. You might say, oh, if Christian could tell my story. Oh, if Tim Bailey could tell my story. No, there's no one better to tell your story than you. You are the best at it. You know it. You have lived it. You have been in it. And it doesn't have to be overly eloquent. You don't have to be amazingly charismatic. You just need to be you. So what do you say? You tell your story. And the final question, how do I lead them to Jesus? How do I lead them to Jesus? We're going to give you some tools for how to do this in another message. But most people will be best to make that decision in church. So the best way you can lead them is by offering an invite. Come on, somebody. Doesn't that take some weight off your shoulders today? Doesn't that make you feel a bit freer today? Every single person that you talk to about Jesus, you share your faith with, you don't have to lead them to Jesus right there. Because I know that's caused anxiety and pain for people. What you need to do is extend an invite to church. At times we have these visions of trying to lead someone all the way from first conversation through to leading them to Jesus in the football pitch or in the office. I'll be dead honest with you, that's never happened for me. I've been privileged to lead people to Jesus. I'm in church mainly and on a couple of instances outside. But that's only been on the back of months and years of relationship. Talking, sharing, telling, inviting. And then it happens. All you need to do is to extend an invite. Invite them to one of our services at Arena. I mean, just take a second to think of the last time you brought someone to church. I want to say we can do a lot better in this area. See, this should be a constant thought in our minds. How can I invite that person? How can I bring them into the house of God so that they can experience who He is? And at Arena, we always give the opportunity for people to get to know Jesus. So they will have the opportunity when you bring them. Now, a few tips from me who I've been trying to do this for many years. I want to get better at it, but I've been trying for many years. The first tip is this: follow up. If you get a firm yes from someone about that they want to come to church, that they want to be there, don't just say, I'll see you Sunday morning and leave it there. Give them a text on Saturday, because you might be comfortable coming to church. You know what you're coming into. They don't. They might be picturing pews. They might not know what to wear. They might not know what the environment's going to be like. Drop them a text on a Saturday. Just say, hey, looking forward to seeing you. I'll meet you at the door. Don't make them come in and find their own way and do all that stuff. There's a lot of anxiety in that when people go to a place for the first time. So make sure you follow up. The next thing you can do is use food. This is a great tip. Grab coffee before or after church, or say, oh, look, come to church and we'll go out for dinner afterwards. We'll go out for a picnic. Summer's coming. Come on, who's excited about that? Use food to do that. And the final one is just to make the most of big events. Christmas, Easter, they are the easiest times to bring someone to church, to invite someone, and people are open at these times. So there's 3 little throwaways for you. But I'm about to finish, and I want you to know, whoever you are, you might have said, you might have written yourself off in this area in the past. I'm not outgoing. I'm not charismatic. I don't preach. I don't know the Bible well enough. I hope you see on the back of today, you don't need any of those things. Whatever personality type that you are, you can impact your world. God has placed you there for a specific reason, to be salt and light, to make a difference. Do you know what salt and light do? They bring change and they bring influence. Turn a light on in a dark room, changes the atmosphere. Put salt on your food, it makes it taste awesome. God wants you to be an agent of change. Jesus himself said, I am calling you to be salt and light. So we're all called to be that, regardless of what we feel about ourselves, our personality types, how outgoing we are. So let's make sure we do this together. You can lead people to Jesus as you go to your world and as you share your story and as you extend an invite. You've got this. But I want to now pray for boldness and courage for you as I wrap up. So God, for every person who's hearing this today, Lord, for people who maybe have never fully stepped into sharing you, Jesus, I pray as a church that we'd be so much better at this. I pray, God, you'd make us courageous and bold. I pray you'd help us to go to our world, to share our story, and to extend an invite in your powerful name. Now today, if you're here for the first time and you're listening to this message, it's great to have you with us. But you might say, what's this Jesus all about? And maybe as I've been speaking, you've been sensing that you want to get to know Jesus more. If that's you today, I want to give you an opportunity now to invite Jesus into your life. So if you want to do that in this moment, I just ask you to open your heart, open your mind, just say, hey, Jesus, I want to get to know you. I want to start a relationship with you. It might be a moment to say, Jesus, I'm sorry for some of the stuff I've done wrong. Sorry for the mess I've made at times. But God, I want to walk with you. I invite you into my life. So as you just do that, I want to pray. So God, for every person who's praying that prayer now, for every person that wants to start this journey with you, Jesus, what a great journey it is to know you, to walk with you, to walk in your freedom, to know that all of our error, all of our wrong, all of our mess has been wiped clean by you. It's awesome. I thank you for it, Jesus. And I pray for these people today who are praying that prayer, who are making that decision, that they would walk with you. In your mighty name. Amen.